What's up? What's up? Hope y'all had a good day. Oh man, I want to talk about that boy Al today. Oh Al Sharp. What y'all think about Al Sharp? Coming up in Costco's deep. Yeah. So you know, Al Sharpton is he is the representation of the he is the representation of what the black community is today and why it's that way. Jesse Jackson, for all the good they've done, I'm not here to just, bash, Al completely. I'm finna tell the truth about his ass. But, you gotta preface it and say, for all the good that our black leaders or people who we call black leaders, I'm gonna address that in just a second, but for all the good they've done, it's been so incremental, and especially in comparison to what it could have been, that it's been so incremental that there's been no substantial. I'm sorry. There's been no substantial change for the betterment in our community, even with what they have done, and they've done right. But just because you're doing something doesn't mean you're doing it right. You understand? So you can do, let's say you can do 1,000,000 push-ups, but if you don't do push-ups, then the actual effect of what doing a push-up gives you, because you're half doing it. You're cheating. So you can say, oh yeah, I did 1,000,000 push-ups, but you didn't do 1,000,000 full push-ups. You only did, a little up and down shit they do when they do the fake push-ups. So it doesn't count, right? Because and also you can just kind of compare it to, running in the wrong direction. Like I remember my coach, or my coaches, all of them. They used to tell us that they would rather have a person. I play football. They said I'd rather have a 5 flat, and that's the speed in which they can run a 40. He said I'd rather have a person running a 5.2 in the right way than the person running a 4.4 or 4.3 in the wrong way. You see, just because you do things, if you don't do them in the right way, then just doing them in and of itself makes no difference. And when you take actions that have no significant change or no substantial change, you're basically just doing a bunch of symbolic shit. So basically all of the good that they've done has been symbolic good, not substantial good, for the masses. It's only been symbolic good for the masses to make people feel good, but nothing really substantial. And that's the kind of grandstanding that they took from the civil rights movement. That same type of fucking grandstanding, they took that from the civil rights movement and continued it without evolving, without actually coming up with tactics to actually affect change on a massive level for the black community, substantially, not just symbolically. They just kept the same tropes, And and that does bring me to the civil rights movement, which is, it's kind of hard to talk about Al Sharpton without talking about black leaders as a whole, and it's hard to talk about black leaders as a whole without bringing up the civil rights movement, because that was our one defining moment where we actually had a chance to do something to substantially increase the well-being of blacks in America, and we kind of just traded it for, inclusion, desegregation, and voting rights. Which the voting rights was, we needed the voting rights most definitely. So, like, actually, the only substantial thing that came out of the civil rights movement were the voting rights, because we most definitely, needed those. But it was just so crazy how the movement was hijacked. I mean, not only was it hijacked, but I believe one of the main reasons why they were able to hijack it is because of the initial focus of the civil rights movement. And again, like I said, it ties back into Al, because this is the same type of grandstanding and gestures we've had from black leadership, political black leadership, that has led the majority of us to be worse off than what we were before they took over, which is wild. If you account for inflation and the abundance of economy it was before the civil rights movement, especially within the black community, we are worse off than what we were before a lot of these people took over. And so all of the grandstanding, like I said, the main reason it was able to be hijacked is because the initial focus of it was, it was the voting rights. We needed voting rights. So I'm putting voting rights to the side. Now I'm only talking about desegregation. Desegregation, along with the voting rights, was the main focus, but that's how it was so easily to be manipulated, because if they know that all you want is just to be with us, shop with us, spend your money with us, come into our spaces, then that's not as threatening to them as, oh, well, you know what? No, we actually don't want to commingle with you. We don't want to desegregate. What we want is equal and equitable funding on the same level you all are getting it from, from the government. Everything from the loans, housing loans, like everything from a, funding and grant, like we need the same thing. They actually had a chance to really do something, like to actually probably get actual reparations at that time, because if they had came from an economic standpoint initially, if the civil rights movement had been about more focused on economic equality and economic desegregation, like with hey, we need substantial bills written, like the GI Bill did for these folks, in between World War I and World War II. We need that level of government subsidy. And you can go through our history and see all of the different government subsidies that were supposed to be colorblind, but they ended up going only, for the most part, to, one side. So if the civil rights movement had have had more focus on the economic integration instead of social integration, and then forced social integration at that, like, that's wild that y'all want to force them people to allow y'all to come into their shit, when if we just have said, well, you know what, no, we want to stay in our communities, we want to stay where we're at, we just want equitable funding, we need to be made whole for all of the shit y'all just put us through, not being able to vote and all this shit y'all just, like, we need to be made whole because there are plenty of laws and shit, hey, make us whole, give us equal treatment when it comes to lending, You know, there was equal treatment when it comes to the interest y'all are charging because they were overcharging blacks interest. Like all type of shit they were doing. Like, if it hadn't been for economic equality and equity, then it would not have been so easy to hijack because when your main goal is money, then it means that they have to really like kind of pay you what you're asking for, or at least close to it, in order for you to move on, or in order for you to get the deal done. But when your main objective, like I said, besides voting rights, because that was big, is just desegregation and legal commingling, then that's an easy fix. On the surface, though, again, that's a symbolic fix. Because why in the hell did we have to start, like why did it have to be so focused on commingling? When all we needed was just equity across the federal funding level. And and really just the federal fund, most definitely from the banks and the loans, and all this other stuff that was not equitable. But at least from the federal funding level, if the federal funding level and the state funding levels were, because they get enough subsidies in order to make that happen. But because just imagine if for the civil rights movement they had 6, 7, different bills, different laws. Let's say all together at that time, it may add 50 million to the budget. Which, 50 million in is, oh my God, now maybe like, Okay, sorry about that. But yeah, I was just saying, imagine the civil rights movement, focus on the economic equality, where. Okay, yeah. But yeah, I was just saying, if the civil rights movement hadn't been focused, initially from an economic standpoint, and along with the Voting Rights Act, instead of desegregation and forced integration, if they hadn't gotten bills that were more that were completely focused on the economics for blacks and equality in economics, then we could have had some type of through 6 or 7 or 8 bills, could have been the first form of reparations. Then they probably would have only hit the federal government at that time with that money, probably around $50 million. They could have had 7 or 8 bills, maybe even 4 or 5, that addressed, equality in housing, equality in, loans, equality, across the federal, spending wise, like I said, and economically. And then having institutions in place, for checks and balances, to monitor and and to actually enforce it, and to make sure these things are done, and fully funded. Like, imagine if that had been the civil rights movement, to where instead of sitting at lunch counters getting shit poured on them, shit, they were standing outside the banks, or standing outside the loan institutions, standing outside the real estate companies, standing outside, like I said, financial and economic institutions, asking for equality from an economic standpoint. Then it would not have been so easy to just jack. The civil rights movement would not have been able to be, taken over by, white liberals, which is what happened. And as all bills are, of course, they shoehorn in so much other stuff, under the title of bills. They'll say the Civil Rights Act, but one of the ways in which they hijacked it and used to their benefit is, when the Civil Rights Act made it okay for other immigrants to come to America now and become citizens. So that's where you have your immigration of your Asians and all the other people that really started to migrate in right after that. And what's so crazy is that the act that was, that black people fought and died for to get done, they ended up, it ends up that more races are able to come in and benefit off of that than us, because the other races who were able to come in, they were given loans and grants to come in and start businesses. And that's how you got your Asian community so deeply embedded in the black community, right? With all the different stores, because that's where the government, when they came over, they gave them money and, low interest loans and shit to open up stores in the black community, not in the white community, but in the black community. So that's what the Civil Rights Act did. And again, all they gave us was, for the most part, other than the Voting Rights Act was the only concrete part of that. All the other shit was just fluff, because it ended up benefiting other races more than it did the people who supposedly it was made for. But again, that's because we are so, our leadership. It just goes back to our leadership. They knew that also, then they knew. Well, they knew that they should have focused more on the economic standpoint, to be honest with you, And like I said, that's why this is about Al Sharpton, because he represents all of that. He represents the entire reason, like I said, of why the black community is where it is today, is because back then, all the civil rights leaders, even Dr. King, they all knew that if we attack this from an economic standpoint, we're going to alienate ourselves and lose our support from the white liberals if we start asking for economic equality. So they knew it. They made an intentional effort not to push economic equality in order to appease so-called allies, in order to get placated, for the most part, besides the Voting Rights Act. To get basically bamboozled. To say, yeah, we're helping you here on the front of it that says Civil Rights Act, but we're about to throw so much shit in this Civil Rights Act that it's going to benefit the people who we throwing all this extra shit in here for more than it's going to benefit you. Because, again, you're not getting the economic part of it. You're only getting the social part of it. That's all you're getting. You're only getting the inclusion. You're only getting the social part of it. And that's why that the government was able to use something that was, made for blacks to bring in all other type of races and give them pretty much the same economic equality that whites had, or most definitely more than what blacks had, based off of something that, the majority black people fought for. And it's wild. That is, and then I just see, you see Al Sharpton walking up in the Costco with all them black people and just look like sheep. Like, it really does. It looks like a bunch of fucking sheep. Because that's all we have. We actually do not have leaders. I said earlier I was going to touch on this. We do not have leaders in the black community. Not actual leaders. Not by definition we do not. We have people in leadership positions. But these people are not leaders. These people are followers. Again, Al Sharpton is still following the same tactics from the fucking 60s. Which those tactics still rendered us unequal from an economic standpoint. Which, what is the point of being able to sit at the table with a man if you can't afford to buy the fucking food? Freaking food, I'm sorry for cursing. But, and then like I said, it's just seeing Al walk in there with those people, and to really feel like They're doing something. It's baffling. But all of that stems from the civil rights movement. And the fact that, the civil rights movement totality, like I said, the Voting Rights Act is really the only thing that holds weight from the civil rights movement substantially. But man, for the most part, they got it wrong. They got it completely wrong. There was no way, social equality should have been the main focus. When again, if you can't afford to be in the same places, like, what does it matter that you can sit at the table and you can't afford it? But folks like Al Sharpton just, that's black leadership for you. And that's why we are where we are, because we don't have leadership who actually looks out for us. Again, during the civil rights movement, they knew that they could not push economic equality because they knew that their allies, the white liberals, would say, no, we're not going to support that. So they made an intentional choice to say, hey, you know what? We're not going to worry about trying to get economic equality. We just want to be able to desegregate. And as soon as they desegregated, it killed the black community. All the affluent blacks, all the business owners, everyone with money, they left into the other side of town. And then that created white flight. So the cascading effect of desegregation is, man, like I don't know. It's hard for me to say that, like I say, it's voting carries a lot of weight. But at the same time, in hindsight now, our right to vote has not put us in a better economic position. Obtaining the right to vote has not put us in a better economic position as a whole. From an economic standpoint, blacks are worse off now than they were before all this shit happened. And all that's happened is, the same talented 10th who was rich and affluent then is the same talented 10th who's rich and affluent now. And that percentage really hadn't, moved. I think they said average black income went up, $2 per hour or some shit? Something, I don't know. Like, I have to look it up, but the median income, no, I think it's 2%. Yeah. I think it's only, listen, in 40 years, since the civil rights movement, 50 years, 60 years, however long it's been. 50 years. What, 1965? Yeah, so 60 years. Coming up on 60 years. Black household income has increased, 2% maybe? Maybe 5%. If that much. 50 years. So, of course, voting is so important, but like I said, when you just kind of look at it, when you kind of, put it on the scale, like, what did the voting rights get us from an economic standpoint as a collective? In comparison to what other races who were able to benefit off of laws that were put in place off of brutality taken from us, from our folks, they were able to benefit off of the Civil Rights Act economically more than we were, because they were able to come into America. They were able to immigrate into America now. And when they came, they were given loans to open businesses. But again, open those businesses in the black community. That's why Becky didn't have Chinese stores in her neighborhood growing up. Because when they immigrated over here, they gave them loans to open up businesses in the black neighborhood. But the same blacks who were supposedly, given all these rights under this same law, the same act, they did not reap those same economic benefits that the immigrants who are benefiting from the law that the blacks died to get made are getting. But yet Al Sharpton not black leaders, you know, like, and there's no way you can make that make sense. People say make it make sense. You can't make it make sense. No, it makes perfect sense because we already know that they forsook. I can say that right, forsook. Um, they forsook economic equality. They said screw it. We're not going to focus on economic equality. I mean, I don't know if they thought they could come back and do it, but it was like as soon as they got that done, that was it. That was it. Like there has been no substantial bill like the GI Bill or the new bill done strictly for blacks. Not the one. From an economic standpoint. I'm not talking about this morality shit, stuff. But it is so disheartening to see what our black leadership does to us. It's wild. Because shit rolls downhill. So if the majority of your people are still on the bottom, it's not the people on the bottom's fault. The same people on the bottom are still the same people, for the most part. You can go right now to your local hood. And they can go back at least 3 or 4 generations. And, that's way past the civil rights movement. They at least know who great-great-grandma was, for the most part. And great-great-grandma was in the hood in the 20s, just like her great-great-grandchildren are in the hood now. And that gap has not closed, it's widened. So, you mean to tell me that we have all this so-called black leadership now, and the economic gap, even within the black community, didn't close? We still have the talented 10th. It's still, for the most part, the same percentage of blacks that were doing good before the civil rights movement is the same percentage of blacks who are doing good now. That was not the intended purpose from what we were taught. The intended purpose was to increase the amount of wealth in the community. It should not still be the same disparity, even within I'm not even talking about with other races. But even within the black community, the disparity in wealth should not be the same as it was before the civil rights movement. It shouldn't be, but it is. And it should be because of the lack of focus on economic equality when we had a chance. We had a chance. We had the world, like everything at that time. That was the perfect time for them to get some form of long-standing economic benefit, some type of reparation type scale for black Americans. That was the time. And, beyond voting rights, they settled for just being able to, walk in the store. Say, hey, say this, say that. Because again, with the benefit of hindsight, even if we look at, affirmative action, and if we look at if we go back and look at all the things that were supposed to fix the issues in the black community that they instituted, none of it worked. Same way with the civil rights movement. All the stuff that was put in place to so-called help us, or what they said was going to help us, even if they did put something in place or come up with it, they didn't monitor it to make sure it was equitable, to make sure it was still benefiting us. White women benefit the most off of affirmative action. So again, here it is that they're instituting or supposedly doing something for blacks off the shit that, we fought for and died for, and another race gets the benefit off of it more than we do. But our black leaders still walk around like we did something. I don't. like I said, I had the benefit of hindsight because now we can see the effect of all the shit that they did. Well, the lack of effect, I guess, because shit only got worse. Well, no, yeah, it's an effect. Yeah, because shit got worse. Shit didn't stay the same. So it most definitely was an effect. But it got worse. How did it get worse as um, black leadership increased? How? How did the black community get worse as more black leaders? I mean, you start having more black people in positions of leadership. I can tell you why. Plantation mentality. That's exactly why the wealth gap, even within the black community, has not closed. Plantation mentality, the talented tenth. We will forever be cursed by it until, and if you're on Twitter now, you can see it happening with the black lady from, I think it's Tabitha Brown, the black lady from, who had the thing about Target, go buy my shit from Target. Like, you can see it now. And it's the truth. Listen, after a certain point, race doesn't even matter. You're a billionaire. Like, once you're a billionaire and you're a millionaire and you're in that, like, stratosphere, race ceases to exist. Because, Tabitha's, crying about being a black business and black that and, such and such, but baby, you a billionaire. So race does not even matter now. You're in another stratosphere. All that matters is you are a billionaire. And billionaire worship is what's wrong with the entire country. And is also in, the black community suffers from that too, billionaire worship. But again, a lot of people are calling her on her shit like, no, like, you are a fucking billionaire. Like, you straight. Don't come crying to the poor black, like, shit, we ain't got it. But that gap, even within the black community, has not closed. If anything, it widened. The gap widened. The poverty, like, the gap between rich and poor, even within the black community, widened as more blacks took positions of leadership. And again, the only thing that explains that is the plantation mentality. Because that is the plantation mentality. White people did not run the plantation. Black people did. White people owned it, financed it. But black folks did everything else. Built it, farmed it, cleaned it, cooked it, painted it, cut it. Blacks ran the plantation. Yeah, you had some overseers who were, swinging the whip. But for the most part, it was black people slinging the whip. It was us. We did all the beating. So they had us to police ourselves, or to, they picked a few out. They picked a few, times the 10th, picked a few out, and the few ran the many. And they sat back and, it was a well-oiled machine. And it's the same well-oiled machine we have now. Our black leaders are no more than overseers now we're not on a physical field plantation, we're in a corporate plantation. We're on the political farm. We're on the corporate farm. So we have these people who are basically just our overseers. That's why their wealth increases, your wealth doesn't. That's why the wealth gap in the black community did not shrink with the increase of black leadership. It widened. How is that? How does the wealth gap, even within the black community, how does it shrink with the increase of black leadership? That doesn't correlate. But it does when you understand that it's the plantation mentality. We're on the corporate plantation, we're on the political plantation, and people with the money choose the talented tenth from us to make these decisions, and they constantly get paid because they make decisions for themselves that benefit their pockets, and it does not trickle down to the people because they don't vote for the laws that could help the majority of blacks. They vote for the laws that they vote for the laws that keep the same structure going, where blacks are at the bottom percentage of getting these opportunities. Again, you know, yeah, yeah, we still have the same disparities, the same statistics in the same categories, if not worse, than before the civil rights movement. In major categories, lending, home ownership, like all the major categories that matter, we are worse for the most part. Of course, there have been some incremental improvements, but from a mass scale, no. But, Al Sharpton is running up in Costco like, oh my God, man, I mean, it's fucked up that they did remove the fair protections. Like I would, like you need federal protections because America is not a meritocracy, and that's just conservative bullshit that they want to spout as if I don't want to jump on the conservatives like because I'm on the liberals' ass, the Democrats' ass, and the black leaders, I'm on their ass. Oh, and when I talk about black leaders, I'm talking about the Republican leaders too, because they're the same shit. Like they're no different. The black and Republican leaders. But anyway, hop on conservatives right quick. Like that's there. America is not a meritocracy. America has never been a meritocracy. It's always about who you know or not what you know. Our, our third and fifth president, or our second and fourth president, or something like that, they were father and son. Like from day one, this shit was nepotism. Nothing qualified Quincy Jr. to be president other than the fact that his dad was president, for the most part. Same way with Bush Jr. So America is not a meritocracy. So, again, I'm not for, forced integration and hiring people just for the sake of race. But you do have to have federal protections around this bitch because, man, I'm telling you, like, but y'all about to see now. You're really about to see, because, see, you never lived in the world without federal protections because it's always been there. So you don't know what that world is like. That's why you're okay with saying, oh, everything is cool now, everything is fine. No meritocracy is involved, period. No meritocracy is involved, period, in America. So they just removed all those federal protections, and we're about to see. Well, y'all will see, because I know. I already know. I said I've never lived in the world without federal protections, for jobs and stuff, but like common sense. I have common sense. Like I have history to look back and see what that world was like. And nothing about anything, like I don't care what people say now, actions speak louder than words. And the people now are no different than the people back then. They're still capable of doing the same shit. And they still do the same shit, they just do it in different ways. So, but yeah. But again, this whole thing is because of lack of actual leaders and leadership positions in the black communities. We do not have black leaders. Al Sharpton is not a leader. He is a follower in a position of leadership. None of these people, Jesse Jackson, he was not a leader. He was a follower in a position of leadership. All the real leaders were killed. That's the reason why they were killed. And that's the reason why they were made examples of. Because they were actually about to, like they didn't kill Martin until he began to shift his focus from, after the Civil Rights Act, then he started, came with the, hey, well, where's my money now? Like, now we need economic equality, the March on Washington. Well, see, when you start doing that, now you're like, oh, wait a minute, Negro. Wait a minute, Negro. We done gave you the lunch counters. We're not going to give you the, And as soon as he shifted this message to that, not long after, they knocked him off. Because he actually started talking about stuff that was going to actually benefit us from a substantial standpoint economically. Kind of the same way with Malcolm. As soon as Malcolm became more of a centrist, they knocked him off. Because that's where common sense is. Common sense lives in the center. Because that's where balance is. Balance can see both sides. Balance look left and right. and can see both sides and be like, okay. Fred Hampton, you know, man, listen, killing Fred Hampton was maybe the, you know, third or fourth most devastating thing to blacks in the history of black people in America. The killing of Fred Hampton. That man was, oh my God. If the Black Panthers and guys like Fred Hampton had have actually gotten the fun, and see, and they had it right from a, you know, from a focus standpoint of, you know, we need this economic equality. The militant shit, you know, I guess was fucked up, but I mean was messed up. But from an economic standpoint, they had the blueprint. And that's just so crazy that, you know, again, you know, Martin got the movement going, but had the wrong focus initially, and then got knocked off for later moving to the focus. The Black Panthers had the right focus initially and got knocked off instantly, almost. Like, they had to knock Fred off because if Fred Hampton probably would have been the first black president, and I can guarantee you that the wealth disparity within the black community would not be as wide as it is had Fred Hampton lived. Fred Hampton, which I'm gonna have to do a video on him, he was what he was the last black leader, the last real black leader was Fred Hampton. After Fred Hampton, all we've had are black people in positions of leadership. But we haven't had a true black leader since Fred Hampton. Because leaders focus on things that actually affect the people they're leading. They have an actual substantial effect. They don't focus on things that's going to make their people happy. They focus on things that's going to make their people thrive and survive. So, you know. You know, I hate it. You know, Al, you're a clown. Go sit down. All the rest of black leadership, you know, y'all the same way. And I hope no conservatives come and try to clip this shit. Well, yeah, come and try to clip this as if I'm just ragging on the black community, because black Republicans are no better than the same. So this is not just me talking against Al Sharpton and the Democrats, you know. None of those people are different. They're all the same. So don't try to clip this up as like, oh, look at this black man talking about Democrats. That sounds like him. No. I don't mess with you all either. All you all are the same to me. Liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat, you all are all the same. I just happen to be on the liberals tail tonight. But anyway, that's it for tonight, guys. I might see y'all later on, depending on how this news is going. This AI stuff is going crazy, so I'll probably be back on later to do something about the AI, talk about that. All right, see y'all, man.